Welcome everybody to the second open house for the East Grand Forks Land Use Plan. We are recording this and it will be up on the project website. So we're going to start the presentation by describing that this is a land use plan partnership between the City of East Grand Forks, the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks MPO, and then WSB and Community Design Group are the two consultants working with the city and the MPO to develop this land use plan. I'm going to start by providing Nancy Ellis an opportunity to introduce herself and discuss the city's desire within this update, and then hand it over to Terry Kuba for the same from the MPO perspective. After that, Antonio and I will go through the slides describing the rest of the land use plan. So with that, Nancy, is there an introduction you would like to give?
Sure, I'm Nancy Ellis. I'm the Community Development Director. That includes city planning. This is my third land use plan for the city. We use it as just a guide for our future development. We look at it for a number of different things as to land development in terms of parks and commercial retail, industrial types of zoning, future uses, our downtown, as well as our transportation in the future. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly contact our office in regards to this land use plan.
Thank you. Terry, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Hi, I'm Terry Kuba. I'm with the Grand Forks Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, as most people call us. We are helping the city in this plan specifically so that we can help them establish a transportation network, future network in our future plans. So we are able to get a lot of other information like future population, future employment and things like that for our future plans that we help both the city of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks to do in the future. If you have any questions about this plan or any of the other transportation issues that we have, please feel free to contact our office.
Thank you, Terry. At the very end of this presentation, we'll both go over how to provide comments, and then in addition to that will be Terry's contact information that you could reach out to her directly. But thank you both for that introduction. What I'm going to go over next is how we got to where we are today. This project has been going on for about 13 months. It's included a steering committee of quite a number of community partners and important organizations to assisting the city of East Grand Forks. So we've conducted 3 steering committee meetings and actually plan on conducting a 4th steering committee meeting at the end of the month. In addition to that, we've had quite a bit of online public engagement, which started out with the creation of the project website, and then did 3 different online engagement opportunities, including first the wiki map, and then 2 online surveys. In February, we conducted a virtual open house, much like today, and that video is available on the project website. Our video that we're doing today will also be posted on the project website, as in addition, the city will use that on their information channels to try to get the word out. So the 2050 land use plan will actually incorporate 6 different chapters: the introduction, community background, public input, goals and policies, future land use plan, and implementation. We will go over those in detail here between Antonio and myself, and then at the end we'll discuss how the public can give comments regarding the draft 2050 land use plan. So to begin with, we've created the community background, which takes the relevant data that would be affecting a land use plan and incorporate it into things like population projections. So we have a number of characteristics that we look at, including population, which you see in the graph at the top, but then also some of the demographics of the population, including the population pyramid shown on the bottom. In addition to that, we look at other information that would include income by household, elements that would be important to the local economy, including what the graphic is showing on the bottom there of the amount of people that come into work into East Grand Forks, the amount of people that work with that are East Grand Forks residents and remain in East Grand Forks when they work, and then the amount of East Grand Forks residents that leave the city to work elsewhere. This is important information for us to come up with opportunities and areas of concern that the land use plan needs to address. The second item I will turn over to Antonio as he describes the public involvement process.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Antonio Rosell. I run a firm called Community Design Group, and we are part of the project team. One of the tasks that we supported the work for this plan with was through the public involvement process for the plan. It was a multi-level, a multi-step public involvement process. We have a steering committee made up of residents and representatives of of different organizations in the East Grand Forks area who have been helping to steer the work and advise the work. We've been sharing drafts of different materials with them and receiving their comments so that we can orient our work. But the engagement activities with the public itself, with the residents of East Grand Forks, had several components. The organizing component, especially given that this work took place during the time when we've all been facing these conditions with COVID-19, we had to do a lot of our work remotely or virtually. And so the project website was kind of an organizing place for all of the work that we did with the public. The URL is www.egfplan.org. And through there, and using the city's social media and also the MPO's social media, we distributed several surveys. We had an online survey, an initial one that was kind of like a visioning visioning type of questions, a very simple, I think it was 3 or 4 questions long. And then we had a more complex and deeper survey that really had quite a number of questions. I think somewhere like 40 or 50 questions, and included all kinds of dimensions. So we had, for example, questions about the type of housing that is needed in the community, and if people perceive that there is a need for housing downtown, and different types of investments that people might want to see. Also questions about industrial development, industrial activity, and with quite a number of open text questions that allowed us to get free responses from participants. We also had a wiki map, which is really, it's an interactive online map that allows people to place comments in specific locations in the city to let us know where there are specific issues or opportunities they want to communicate to the project team. And so we use that information to really learn about specific places in the community where some ideas would be better suited than in other places. The website also is the place where we've archived all of the information we've developed. So you can find the results from the surveys on the website. For example, we've also, and different materials that as we have developed them, the drafts of the land use plan, for example, different summaries on population projections, all of those are hosted on the website, as will be the video from this open house. And this is the second open house that we've hosted. The first one, which was also held virtually because of COVID concerns, is available on the website as well. So that's an overview of public involvement. And now you might ask yourself, well, that sounds great, Antonio. That sounds like you guys did quite a bit of work with the public. What is the purpose for it? What is the usefulness of it? Well, we use that information to really steer what the work of the plan was. So it's a plan that responds to the guidance, to the comments and the ideas that we received from the public. And we use that directly to shape the different policies that have the recommendations attached to them that are the kind of the essence of what the plan seeks to do. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Eric.
Thank you, Antonio. I think that builds quite well into the next section, which is goals and policies. We use this with our project management team and steering committee to come up with a number of goals and policies about a variety of specific areas. These are really the instruments that will be used both in the implementation strategies that we'll discuss at the end of this document, as well as influencing some of the land use decisions that we made. But we evaluated the previous planning studies and other planning documents, but the public input that we received through the activities that Antonio described really help us to determine what are the best goals and policies to move forward. They are organized into five different topics, and we provided the goals here on the right. They are housing and residential, economic development, urban expansion. You could see here that we talk about the neighborhoods and the urban services that are needed to support the neighborhoods in our housing and residential section. You will note that we have two different sections in economic development. Some of that is, or the largest reason is because of the existing downtown within East Grand Forks that is distinct and different from the rest of the city. So goal number one is meant to describe all the economic development activities within the city, where goal number two is talking specifically with downtown. And then with all kinds of investments, including transportation investments, we want to be able to use our resources as efficiently as possible. So providing a goal that evaluates when the urban services would be extended is very important to that efficient use of public resources. The final two goals were parks, recreation, and open space, and then transportation. Parks, recreation, and open space talks about how to provide additional opportunities throughout the community. So it's building on what's there today, but making sure that both as the community grows and gaps are identified, that investments are made to connect those opportunities and provide them throughout the community. Transportation here you see has three different goals, and as that Terry introduced, the Metropolitan Planning Organization is going to use this land use plan to influence their regional decisions. So it was important to have a number of different and distinct transportation goals. The first being provide a transportation system that integrates with land use and development, that provides that safety and all modes of transportation. The second one is to advocate for development that will support the infrastructure investments that either have already occurred or will occur in the near future. And there we list quite a few of the infrastructure or facilities that the city either has or plans on investing in. And then finally, that the current and future transportation needs of the community are implemented as growth occurs. So probably one of the largest chapters of the document is the future land use plan. Now, I would say here that a large part of this is carried forward from the 2040 land use plan. And you could see on the right, that is the 2045 land use plan. You could see to the right, the existing map from the 2045 land use plan, and all those land use categories are carried forward. To influence how the 2040 or the 2050 land use plan is modified from that 2045 plan, we did a number of things, including within the community background, developing a population projection. In addition to that, we provided a land use projection of the different types of land use, such as commercial or industrial land that would be needed. And that is actually based off of some of the factors that were used in the 2045 transportation analysis zone planning document. So between the population projections and the factors that we arrived at from that 2045 PAS document, we were able to come up with additional land use projections, which actually resulted in an understanding that there is not a large need for additional land outside of the city limits. If I could go back to the 2045, you'll actually see, particularly to the northeast side of town and somewhat to the south side of the existing city limits, the amount of land has actually been reduced. But we also indicate where there are likely the 2 bridge alignments that are being evaluated for a potential new south river crossing. And we'll discuss how that could be accommodated through some of the area concept plans here shortly. So realizing that there is additional growth needed to go out to 2050 and implementing the goals to try to have a wise investment of public infrastructure, there's a phasing plan that goes with this to show that the growth over the next 30 years will be done on an incremental basis and can wisely use both the existing either vacant or underutilized properties within the city limits or properties that are currently vacant that are directly adjacent to the city limits. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Antonio to talk a little bit about the development process and in the plans that he evaluated during the development of this section of the plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. One of the other components that we work with Eric and the city and MPO team for this plan was on the pedestrian and bicycle mobility component. And something that is really important to highlight is that the city and really the region, through the work of the MPO combined with the city, have in place a bicycle and pedestrian plan providing guidance and anticipating investments over to 2045, for example. There are a number of studies, a number of documents that have also been developed in collaboration between the city and the MPO that have to do with, for example, safe routes to school, with transit priorities, with ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA investments that are planned. And so one of the things that we wanted to do for the pedestrian and bicycle set of approaches is to really clarify that these plans are the plans that need to be consulted when a developer comes, for example, and is interested in developing some land parcels, that they have to review the existing guidance to see if there is, for example, a sidewalk segment or a trail segment that needs to be addressed as part of that development. And so the plan includes just a brief summary of recommendations. It outlines, which are these documents, and in addition, and that these documents are treated as plans and standards for what must occur. But then also there are guidelines that we reference that are helpful tools to know how exactly should these facilities be developed if we want to support walkability or bikeability. And so, for example, there's reference to design guides developed by the National Association for City Transportation Officials. There's reference to the Federal Highway Administration, Small Towns and Rural Multimodal Networks, where they basically, and also to MnDOT documents that, the MnDOT Bicycle Design Manual that say, well, if you are wanting to provide a trail, if we've identified a trail need for the future here, this is how you develop a trail that fulfills the, this framework where we want our transportation system to be safe and accessible and inviting for people through a wide range of ages and abilities, which sometimes is known as an all ages and abilities network. And that's an important part of how we are approaching land use for the future as well, because land use and transportation, as you know, are very closely related. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric again. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Antonio. So in addition to the land use map that we developed throughout this plan, and then the other documents that discuss what infrastructure needs to be created during development, we also carried forward directly from the 2045 that SRF had prepared the area concept plans. There are three specific area specific area concept plans. The first being on the north side of town at the northwest corner of 23rd Street and Minnesota 220. The second is kind of northeast of downtown at north of US Highway 2 and east of the current city limits. And then finally, to the southern portion of the city, south of 16th Street and on both sides of Reinhardt Drive. The important elements of these concept plans is it gets into more of a granular detail of how to make logical block patterns, how to include the appropriate pedestrian or bicycle facilities, and other elements, including open space and park recreational. So it's almost like three small area plans where it gets into more detail. These concept plans could be carried out through other areas within the city, but gives an illustration of different types of land uses. As you see here, a predominantly mixed use location north of town, more of a industrial commercial type of location to the northeast of town, and then a residential location with some commercial to the south side of town. So these three area concept plans will provide good direction for how to develop neighborhoods as development moves forward. So the final chapter of the land use plan is the implementation chapter. And what this is a merge of the goals and policies chapter with all the activities that need to happen to accommodate the land uses called for in the land use chapter. So we start with the goals that we previously discussed, but in addition to that, we break those out into implementation measures. So policies or smaller goal statements of how to create the overarching goal. We talk about and credit what is currently occurring within the city or the region to implement that implementation measure. And then we identify both short and long-term measures that need to occur to achieve that goal. And then finally, we identify the responsible agencies and supportive agencies that are needed to be consulted to actually implement and manage these additional measures to provide for the logical implementation of the goals and the land use map itself. So finally, we're going to talk about how you would be able to comment. As Antonio spoke before, here is the URL for the project website, www.egfplan, all one word, .org. We are recording this open house, and this will be placed on that project website and given to the city to use through their communication channels. We will be asking for comments by October 1st, because we are planning for a Planning Commission public hearing on October 14th at noon, and then the City Council work session review of this document on October 26th at 5 p.m. So comments received by October 1st will be able to be incorporated into these documents and provided to both the Planning Commission and City Council with sufficient time for them to review both this document and any comments received. So to illustrate how one option of how to contact us to provide those comments, you see that there is a contact tab on the ribbon on the far right hand side. And if you clicked on that, what will open up is this contact form. and we will be asking for your name, your email address, and comment. And as you see on the bottom, there's additional information for Terry Kuba to contact if you have any other specific information that you want to provide in addition to your comment. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. And again, there is the contact form on the project website. This open house will be provided as a video for you to review. And if you have any additional questions beyond the contact form, please contact Terry Kuba directly at the information provided. With that, thank you and have a good evening.